My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on tonight's show, I'm pleased to have the second-year head coach with the Northwest United program, co-op with many, many schools, Jennifer Garzone, who's made quite a name for herself in multiple ways, both on and off the field. Coach, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Coach, before we get into this season, I mean, last year, you guys finished 7-3. There were a lot of highs. There were some lows, but a positive season, especially with the amount of, and I think your job in particular is difficult because you have multiple schools, multiple, a lot of bodies coming in as far as players and such. And then coming into this year, you get a couple more schools being added in. So as far as last year was concerned, I mean, how were you able to kind of keep everything together and have the season that you did last year?
So, last year, yeah, as you're right, we started off. We had about 25 when we were in August. So, going into the season, that's a very low number. And that's also a number where you can't even think about having JV games yet, right? You're worried about, hey, if I got four varsity games in a row, how am I competing? But also, how am I keeping kids healthy
Mhm.
enough to be able to continue? So that was on our mind. Um, in addition to last year being the first year returning from the COVID era, preseason, I know. Oh, sorry, my cats are fighting next to me. Um, one of the things that we encountered was there were a lot of those weather issues with the heat where, hey, you couldn't be outside. Now, what was interesting is one district would have it and another wouldn't. So there was a day where, hey, the Nanawag players, they're good to go. But Wamogo said, nope, no after school activities for their kids. So then you're missing pieces of your kids in a co op. So that was an interesting start. Um, very blessed with the staff that I have. Very resilient, willing to work through those bumps in the road, if you will, because it's something that comes with being a co-op. You're dealing with different school districts, different boards of ed.
Mhm.
We did have a very experienced upper class, if you will, where there were a couple kids that had played football, whether at the junior varsity level or a couple of them had played varsity as a freshman. And then I know Nanawag went through that change where they were JV for a while. Wolcott Tech, I had a couple seniors from there that had played as freshmen and their sophomore year. Um, Cats, this was not the right time to be having a melee going on. Hold on. Go over there. Uh, the two boy cats don't like each other at various points during the day. Um, so I apologize if I lose my train of thought, making sure they like don't slash any wires or anything like that. So yeah, there we started off with nine seniors. We
Mhm.
added two more after September. That's really, that first game was big for us.
Mhm.
The first win, I think, got, a couple kids who were hesitant about joining our program out in September, and we had early bye weeks, so we were able to get up to about 35, which meant we were able to then add some sub varsity games, get those younger kids some experience at an appropriate level.
Mhm.
Our first two losses both did happen in September as well, so I think that was also uh, you learn from every game, but you learn even more from a loss, and I think that kind of lit a fire under our belts to, hey, we got to get better, especially since one of them was a 2 point game.
Mhm.
Um, the first one was against Cheney 28-0, so I knew that was going to be like a reminder piece going into this year.
Coach, it sounds like to me that because I remember reading the preview articles for various teams, because I always like to read up on the NVL because I broadcast in the NVL, and I was very intrigued, even though I didn't have your game, just to see kind of what was going on as far as the second year, especially with you and the team, and I thought it was very telling when you said that the amount of players that you had coming out before this season. And I felt like that's a lot of credit to you, a credit to the staff, but also to the fact that the kids were able to buy in so quick and also realize like, hey, there's even though it's a lot of co-ops and a lot of a lot of schools, the opportunity is there. Where I mean, right now you guys are in second place in Class Double M, And I think having those numbers, having the players buy in, along other things as well, which I'm sure you'll get into, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the that was probably the biggest learning curve last year was like setting a foundation, sticking to it. But yeah, we were averaging like 15 kids for off-season workouts last year when we first started, and this year we were in the 30s and 40s, which was very positive. But and I've always told them the W's don't happen when September comes. The W's happen in June. Ideally, I'd love to have a weightlifting program and a lifting program that goes even more throughout the year. We were just at That's where a limitation comes in, where all right, there's one school with a weight room.
Mhm.
Kids are coming from over an hour away. Kids do other sports, which I always encourage multi-sport athletes. I think that's one of the best things you can do for kids. They need that break, but also they're developing other skills. They're listening to different voices from different coaches, makes them more well-rounded. Um, but yeah, going into July, you know, uh, instead of just planning, hey, we're gonna get some varsity games, it became we've got to get more equipment. We don't have enough equipment because we had enough for about 35, and we almost essentially had to double it. So which is very exciting, but in the times that we're living in, trying to get items like that, we were short helmets like a lot of teams for about 3 or 4 weeks until our order came in, and we had to get creative. As far as, hey, what could we do? What can we not do? How are we grouping the kids? So that was this year's hurdle, the preseason. How do we get everybody into full gear before game time?
Well, it seems like you guys were able to kind of get through that because, like I said, you guys, not to jinx it, but the season has been going very well. I mean, you guys, as I said, are in second place in Class Double M, a very strong Class Double M. I talked about
Hmm.
SMSA; they're in first place from the Pequot. Killingly is there with Coach Neal. Obviously, you've got I think Wilton in there, and then you've got Coach McKinnon's Weathersfield is not too far behind. Also got Benell in there. You and I were going back and forth with Windsor as well.
Right.
Class double M is very tough, but I think in a lot of ways, and this is the part too where we were, talking about as far as, having, your own tech league, not having, your own league, whatever the case may be. I feel like when you look at what you guys have done thus far, um, what's not to say that it can't happen with you guys if you have an opportunity to get into the playoffs and shock some people, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you always want to succeed and get to that next level. And that would be an amazing not only experience, but an accomplishment in a short amount of time. Um, we're we're like I told you, I am not even thinking about November anytime soon. I am excited to get through our bye week's almost over because those are always like sometimes those drag.
Mhm.
Um, Especially since we had both of ours so early this year. So like we're gonna after this, then we go six in a row. Bam, 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 bam. But like we've been trying to keep kind of using some of those teaching strategies from the classroom, like chunk it. All right, hey, this is our goal this week. This is our plan for this week, and keep everything in perspective, and then let the chips fall where they may, and then um you know uh, go after it then. Not worry about it now. Try to right now the biggest game of our season is Wilcox and Caner, and then the week after that, the biggest game will be Bullard Havens, Colby Cathedral for homecoming.
Coach, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask too. Maybe I should have asked before because I feel like, you are a role model in a lot of ways because of being, the first woman to be able to coach football at the high school level in Connecticut. I saw last year, I think you're the first ever to get a win as far as being, in that retrospect. And I think that's awesome. That's fantastic. Does it ever kind of cross your mind that you are setting, and I don't know if standard is the right word, but setting a high bar to allow this to not just be the first, but to have it be something to happen again and again, whoever, whenever it happens, because I think it will.
Right. I try not to think about it as much. I try to and I early on, probably when I started back in 2012, it was a little bit more apparent, and then I was like, hey, I'm coaching. Like just doing what I love to do. Occasionally, yeah, I mean, like I'm reminded, hey, like, oh, I might be the first. I'm hoping I'm not the last, and I'm hoping where it becomes a normalcy where Like it's just, hey, oh, that's her program, not, oh, that's that coach that just started and she's female and all that. I I look forward to the sense of normalcy, especially since at the end of the day it should really be all about the kids.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I think uh I think there's going to be more opportunities as time goes on in general. Especially with what they've been doing at that NFL, having interns. A lot of those girls I knew of or played against back in the day when I was playing. So that was, you know, it was good to see. But I think really that's going to be the bigger step where once it becomes more commonplace, then it's, that um, that uncommon factor will hopefully fade into the past where hey, we just get to worry about football.
Exactly. No, I agree. I think, the normalcy part is something that I think we're all trying to, for people who want to see stuff go forward. And I think, like you mentioned, the NFL, baseball, which is my sport, I love baseball, seeing it from the minor league level all the way to the pros. I mean, when Derek Jeter decided to step down, there was a female who was hired as the general manager, and she's done great work so far. And I can't pronounce her name, so I don't want to butcher it. I know the Yankees in the minor leagues, had somebody who, again, having a woman to be able to be the manager there, she did fantastic work as well. So it's like the steps are there, and I feel like maybe it's not going as quick as some would want, but I hope and I think that because of where we are right now, and a lot of people giving an opportunity and having their eyes maybe a little bit more wide open than how we used to be a couple years ago, and I think COVID kind of worked like that in some sense. I do see stuff moving forward, and hopefully you will not be the first and only. It'll be the first, you, and then many to follow going forward. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah. Hey, the 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 less I'm asked to tape ankles, the better it's gonna be. Because plus, if you're an opponent, I'll absolutely tape your kid's ankle, but it ain't gonna help them. It's gonna work in my team's advantage, in my favor. But no, I wouldn't do that. I'm not gonna put a kid in harm way. But I have thought about. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. What if, hey, their best receiver came up to me? All right, so I'm gonna tape both sides of the fingers. We're gonna put on a little extra padding to slow him down. No, just kidding. Not gonna do that.
But coach, I really appreciate you coming on. This was a lot of fun. Before I let you go, what can people expect from your program? Like you said, you're back to back to back to back to back to back, 6 straight weeks after the bye. What can people expect the rest of the way? Because your season, you play some tough games that could realistically make or break. And I know you're only looking at 1 week at a time, so I don't mean
Right.
to kind of look towards the future, but you play some games that could determine if you make or don't make the playoffs. What says you?
Right. Biggest thing to see is, and what we try to push the kids through with that mentality is fight through the adversity, persevere. You're never going to do everything correct. You're never going to do it the way that you want to, but how you react and how you do that next play is what's going to determine, the final outcome. I'm a true believer that one thing doesn't dictate or seal the deal, if you will. But it's many things. It's consistency. It's being willing to go to that extra step. Hey, like, you know, life skills translating out from the football field. Um, there's only 4 years of high school you get to play this game, and then very small percentages get to go on after that. But having that translation follow, into the classroom, into your job. A lot of our kids at the trade school and in VOAG, they're going to be our future farmers. They're going to be a future tradesmen. Um, having that type of mentality goes a long way, and hopefully, success follows us, continues to follow us. But we determine our own destiny, nobody else. It's got to be what our unit decides to do.
Well, coach, I appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun. Cool to be able to see your cats and then, whatnot. I don't want to keep you away from football too much longer, but thanks so much for being able to come on. And hopefully, like I said, you won't be, the first and only female coach. And hopefully, there'll be many, many more to come because I think the role model is there, even though if you don't want to, I know you think about the game and such, but, you know,
Right.
there's bright stuff, hopefully ahead, you know.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much for having me, Chris.
No problem. That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe. Remember, CT stands for Connecticut Talent. I'm Marjorie. Find them all. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and be well.